side. Breathtaking tennis again.
They always called him the fifth man, forever buried under the massive shadow of Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and Murray. He didn't have the flashy looks or the aura of an on-court genius throughout his career. Stanislas Wawrinka was pushed out of the spotlight like a perfect understudy, always ready to lose in the semifinals. But then, from his position as the underestimated one, he rose up, and one by one, he defeated the very legends who were rewriting tennis history in a way no one thought possible. Not once, but 3 times. Each time was a grand slam. Each time was a spectacular upset by a man who was stubborn to the point of madness. What's more, Stanislas Wawrinka even managed to surpass them in the economic and financial spheres, possessing a wealth and influence comparable to any top player. So how did a player who was almost cut from the training system for lacking potential become an indomitable icon of the tennis world and earn hundreds of millions of dollars from the sport now? Let's dive into the story of the star slayer Stanislas Wawrinka, playing tennis because of bad grades. On March 28, 1985, in Lausanne, Switzerland, a place where red-tiled roofs rest peacefully by Lake Geneva, Stanislas Wawrinka was born. Don't let the sophisticated name fool you. Stan didn't grow up in luxury or under the bright lights, but amidst horse stables, green meadows, and the rural atmosphere of Saint-Barthélemy, a small town less than a 30-minute drive from Lausanne, but which felt like a different world. Stan's father, Wolfram, who was of German descent, was a farmer and biologist who ran a farm that also cared for children with special needs. His mother, Isabel, was a dedicated teacher for disabled students. Their family didn't chase fame or achievements. They taught Stan and his 3 siblings the values of hard work, discipline, and perseverance. From a young age, Stan grew up with hands roughened by farm work and a strong, unyielding heart. Stan's childhood didn't include video games or modern playgrounds, and certainly no glamorous tennis academies. He learned to feed the cows before school, became accustomed to the biting cold of winter mornings, and knew to keep quiet when things got difficult. In a world dependent on weather and manual labor, Stan quickly learned that complaining wouldn't get him anywhere. He started playing tennis at age 8, not because of innate talent, but simply because there was a clay court near his house. People would say, "The boy has a pretty good forehand," but academics were a challenge for Stan. He had trouble concentrating. His grades were worse than his peers, and he was often considered behind. Instead of forcing him, his parents allowed Stan to attend school part-time, 3 days a week, and dedicate the rest to training. At age 11, Stan joined a special sports training program, but no one thought he would become a professional player, except for one person, his coach, Dmitry Zavialov. He saw something in the boy with the melancholic eyes and sturdy shoulders, and he stood by Stan like a father and a friend, the only one who believed in him when everything was uncertain. Stan wasn't a prodigy. He didn't amaze anyone like a young Federer. At 14, he was nearly cut from the junior training system for being slow, lacking explosiveness, and without potential. But Stan didn't give up. For him, everything from a bundle of grass in the field to a backhand required sweat and effort, and he was willing to trade it all just to take one small step forward. Stan's childhood had nothing to make the headlines, but in that simplicity, a warrior was forged not by glamour, but through cold mornings and silent hours of practice. If you ever wonder why Stan Wawrinka is always so resilient in the toughest matches, the answer lies in the fields of Saint-Barthélemy, where that young boy learned to endure before he learned to win. The upset king of top players. In July 2002, when Stanislas Wawrinka entered the professional tennis world, there were no roaring cheers, no newspapers hailed him as a genius, and no one dreamed of a Grand Slam victory at that time. The world already had Federer, Hewitt, Safin, and Roddick shining stars. Wawrinka was just a quiet young man, carrying an old racket bag, with a dream of conquering the tennis world. But Stan moved forward, slowly but surely. With the stubbornness forged during his days on the farm, he began his journey. In 2003, he won his first challenger title. By 2005, he was in the ATP Top 50. Not loud, but he was always present, like a persistent rain that forces people to take notice. From 2006 to 2012, Stan often stopped in the second or third rounds of Grand Slams enough to avoid criticism, but not enough to surprise anyone. He was often called a side character for legends like Djokovic, Murray, or Nadal, in matches where everyone could guess the outcome. But Stan was different. He didn't give up. If he lost in the second round, he returned to the gym. If he lost in the fifth set, he would analyze every serve. For him, failure was part of the journey. There was no need to rebel or complain. In 2008, people saw a fire in Stan's eyes. He and Federer won the Olympic men's doubles gold medal in Beijing, defeating the famous Bryan brothers. For the first time, the Swiss anthem played because of him, and his smile was brighter than ever. His biggest breakthrough came at the 2014 Australian Open, when he was 28, an age when many players start to slow down. Stan shocked everyone by defeating Djokovic in the quarterfinals and then Nadal in the final, winning his first Grand Slam in just 3 weeks. He jumped from a world number 8 ranking to number 3, and more importantly, he was called a true champion. Stan didn't stop there. At the 2015 French Open, he beat Djokovic again. At the 2016 US Open, Djokovic once again fell to him. All 3 of his Grand Slam titles came from defeating the world number 1 in the final, a feat that even legends rarely achieved. People started calling him Stan the Man and Stanimal, the one who always knew how to win at the right time. In 2017, his knee forced him to take a step back. 2 surgeries and a series of missed tournaments followed. People said he would retire, but Stan, as usual, didn't listen to anyone. He returned, quietly and persistently. Even though he no longer reached the top, he still trained like a machine, still participated in lower-tier tournaments, finding himself again, little by little. By 2024, when many of his contemporaries had retired, Stan was still there, not to hunt for titles, but to live the tennis dream he had almost lost. He still appeared at the French Open, received a wild card for the 2025 Australian Open, and stepped onto the court with the eyes of a person who had overcome the darkest days. Now, in his 40s, Stan still hits sharp backhands, still leaves his footprints on the clay court, and his heart still beats strong for every single ball. Don't be too quick to say goodbye, because Stan isn't a player of grand debuts. He is a late bloomer, and he endures until the very end. The hidden wealth behind a simple exterior. When people talk about luxury in the tennis world, they often mention Nadal's seaside villa, Djokovic's supercar collection, or Federer's private jet, and Stan Wawrinka. He doesn't show off, but don't let his simple appearance fool you. Behind his quiet demeanor is a refined life, encapsulated in a discretion that only those who have experienced it can understand. As of 2024, Stan has earned over $36 million in ATP prize money, an impressive figure compared to many Grand Slam champions. Thus, at one point, he even surpassed Andy Murray in earnings, despite not being part of the Big Four. His estimated net worth is around $20 million, not including endorsement deals or his investments in a high-end watch brand. But what's remarkable isn't the number, but how Stan uses his money not for show, but to build a private world where luxury is hidden in every detail. Stan lives in Stans, a peaceful town in Nidwalden, Switzerland, where roads wind alongside the Alps and crystal-clear lakes. His house is nestled in nature, unlike the multi-million-dollar mansions often seen in the news. No golden gates, no helipad, but everything is meticulously cared for: soundproof walls, modern heating, a natural rock garden, and an international standard gym. It's the home of a man who knows exactly what he wants, not needing to impress anyone but simply living true to himself. He also owns a villa in Capet, near Lake Geneva, close to the French border. This house stands out with its glass walls, private tennis court, and maple trees planted according to feng shui, acting as a shield for his privacy. Architects call it a blend of nature and modernity. Only someone who values tranquility would invest in a place like this. Stan also kept his old family home in Saint-Barthélemy, where the farm used to be. For many, it would have no value, but for him, it's his roots, a memory that reminds him of where he came from. Keeping this house isn't for show, but to remember who he is. Unlike his colleagues who love to flaunt, Stan's car collection is very personal. He once drove a Subaru 15, a durable, practical SUV that surprised many with its simplicity. But when traveling between tournaments, he chooses a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, a symbol of luxury and comfort. Not as flashy as a Lamborghini, but it's enough to say that the driver doesn't need to shout to be noticed. The press also revealed that he owns an Audi RS4 Avant, a powerful sports wagon with a V6 engine and quattro all-wheel drive. It's not for the masses, but for those who love speed but still need versatility, this car reveals a bold side of Stan that he rarely shows. The interesting thing is that Stan doesn't drive a flashy red supercar, doesn't put on a custom license plate, or post photos of his cars on social media. But every time he appears, his car still makes people turn their heads, not because of its values, but because it suits him so well. Stan's lifestyle is a balance between practicality and refinement. No penthouse in Dubai or villa in Miami, but each of his properties bears his unique mark. A selective taste that prevents outsiders from misunderstanding his true value. Stan lives in luxury, but he doesn't let it define him. In a loud sports world full of posts showing off assets, he is a point of stillness. But being still doesn't mean being obscure, it means being profound. His wealth is in every brick of his villa, every car, and every discreet investment. For those with a keen eye, Stan is the very model of a successful tennis player who, without the spotlight, is always at the top. A story of love and loss. Stanislas Wawrinka has always hidden his heart behind a private smile. Unlike other tennis players who post photos with their partners on social media or appear on magazine covers with famous girlfriends, Stan loved and suffered in silence. In 2009, when his career was still a struggle between the ATP 250 and Challenger circuits, Stan married Ilham Vulu, a Swiss former model and TV host who was a few years his senior. Her calm demeanor seemed to be the rock he needed. A year later, their daughter, Alexia, was born on February 12, 2010. For the first time, Stan was hitting the ball not just for points or titles, but for a little girl waiting for him to come home. But family life was not easy for a tennis player away from home more than 250 days a year. In 2011, Stan left his family to focus on his career. He tried to reconcile, but by April 2015, he announced their separation in a Facebook post, saying they had tried their best but couldn't continue. Ilham later spoke out, causing a stir by claiming that Stan had left the family earlier than he announced, putting his career before his wife and daughter. The rare public exchange revealed cracks in Stan's calm exterior, old wounds that had never healed. In the same year, his name appeared in the news again because of Dana Vekic, a Croatian player 11 years his junior. They were seen having dinner and sharing intimate glances at tournaments. The age gap and their lifestyle sparked gossip, especially after a scandal at the Rogers Cup, when Nick Kyrgios taunted Stan on the court, saying, "Kokkinakis banged your girlfriend. Sorry to tell you that, mate." A clear reference to Dana. The incident blew up. The ATP fined Kyrgios, and Stan was unwillingly thrust into the media spotlight. But as always, Stan didn't respond with noise. He didn't publicly attack Kyrgios, nor did he use the relationship to gain sympathy. The relationship with Dana lasted until 2019, then quietly ended, just as it had begun. No statements, no drama. Now, in his 40s, Stan is still alone on his tour travels. His daughter grew up with her mother, occasionally appearing in vacation photos. No new girlfriends, no rumors. The name Alexia is tattooed on his side, a reminder that no matter how far he travels, there is always a place to come home to. For Stan, love is not something to show off. Every relationship, whether short or long, is part of his life's journey, a place where he learned to sacrifice, endure, and sometimes let go. Tennis taught him how to fight, but love, with its silent scars, taught him how to be a complete person. That, perhaps, is the longest match of his life. The words that shook the tennis world. Stanislas Wawrinka rarely speaks to the press to defend himself. He doesn't smash rackets in front of cameras or argue with umpires into a microphone. But this very composure makes people curious behind those quiet eyes. What kind of undercurrents have ever raged? The answer came on an August night in 2015 at the Rogers Cup in Montreal. in a match against Nick Kyrgios. Wawrinka was knocked out not by a shot, but by a malicious comment from Kyrgios during a changeover. Captured by a courtside microphone, "Kokkinakis banged your girlfriend, mate." The court went silent. The crowd was stunned. Kokkinakis was Thanasi Kokkinakis, a close friend of Kyrgios, and the girlfriend was Donna Vikic, who was dating Stan. The ATP quickly fined Kyrgios for unsportsmanlike conduct. But Stan only responded with a cold remark, "There are limits you shouldn't cross." Those words were sharper than any serve he had ever hit. The incident created a rift in the relationship between Stan and Vikic, quietly driving them apart. It also made Stan the focus of media attention, something he never wanted. The story didn't end there. In 2021 at the Shanghai Masters, Stan was again embroiled in controversy. During his match against Flavio Cobolli, umpire Carlos Bernardes called the wrong score, causing Stan to lose the game in the match. Frustrated, he smashed his racket on the court, a rare act for a man who always controls his emotions. Surprisingly, Kyrgios, his former enemy, came to his defense, criticizing the umpire and demanding that the ATP reform its scoring system. In the same year, Stan caused a stir on social media when he publicly expressed his outrage over the lenient doping penalty given to Jannik Sinner. He wrote, "I don't believe in a clean sport anymore." That straightforward post was shared tens of thousands of times, reigniting the debate about fairness in tennis. Supporters praised him for speaking on behalf of many players. Opponents said he was bitter due to his age and no longer being at the top. For a man who was once considered to lack potential and be unattractive to the media, Stan has never been loud in his demands for justice. But when he does speak, though rarely, his words carry the weight of his entire journey, a man who understands injustice and is strong enough not to succumb to it. On the tennis stage, Stan is a supporting actor who took on the lead role. Over 2 decades, he proved that the quietest people can sometimes make the whole world listen, bringing hope to ordinary kids. When Stanislas Wawrinka lifted his first Grand Slam trophy at the 2014 Australian Open, the entire tennis world was in shock. A 28-year-old player who had never won a Grand Slam or broken into the Big Four had defeated Djokovic in the semifinals and Nadal in the final. That's the essence of Wawrinka. No one picked him to win, but he forced history to be rewritten. His 3 Grand Slam titles, the 2014 Australian Open, 2015 French Open, and 2016 US Open, all came from defeating the world number 1 in the final. This wasn't luck. It was a testament to his mental toughness, winning when everything is stacked against you. While Federer conquered with elegance, Nadal with strength, and Djokovic with strategy, Wawrinka relied on his iron will in crucial moments. His career isn't filled with titles, 16 ATP trophies, and a single Masters 1000 in Monte Carlo, but each one holds great significance. No victory came easily. Every title was a lifelong battle, and the winner was the one nobody expected. In addition to his Grand Slams, Stan also won an Olympic gold medal in 2008 men's doubles with Federer and the Davis Cup in 2014, helping Switzerland win the prestigious team tournament for the first time. These weren't just titles. They were the legacy of a pillar of Swiss tennis for a decade. He reached a career-high ranking of number 3 in January 2014, the only time he reached such a peak. But it has never faded. Even when he's not in the top 10, no one dares to underestimate Stan the man in major matches. Beyond the spotlight, Stan has a heart for children, especially those with disabilities or in difficult circumstances. Perhaps it's because his mother, Isabel, once taught special needs children, or because he himself was considered to lack potential as a child. Whatever the reason, he has always been committed to helping children in need, not just through his image but through concrete actions. He participates in many charity campaigns, most notably his partnership with the Starlet Foundation in Switzerland, which supports children with heart conditions and neurological disorders. Stan auctions his rackets and Grand Slam outfits to raise funds, helping with congenital heart surgeries in Europe and Africa. In 2022, he invested in Norqain, a Swiss watch brand with the philosophy of pushing limits, and became an ambassador for a project that develops life skills for teenagers in remote areas. No noise, no fanfare, just quiet trips where he talks and plays ball with kids who have never held a racket before. Stan doesn't have his own charity foundation like Nadal or Serena, nor does he appear often at global events, but his steady, discreet work, especially with children with special needs, creates a silent and lasting legacy just like the man himself. For Stan, tennis isn't just about glory, it's a way to prove that those who are underestimated, the children who are dismissed, can still shine if they are persistent enough. Through his illustrious titles, he is quietly supporting people just like him. The legs that never tire. At the age of 40, when many of his contemporaries have retired or become commentators, Stan Wawrinka is still on the court. He quietly steps into a match, ready to play 5 sets of this French Open, and can still thrill the crowd with a sharp cross-court backhand. What's surprising isn't that he's still playing, but that he's not ready to stop. In May 2025, after losing in the first round of the French Open, Stan surprised reporters by saying, "I'm near the end, but not yet." No retirement announcement, no emotional farewell ceremony, just a statement that the fire within him is still burning. Though not brightly, it's enough to get him on the court every day. In 2025, Stan received a wildcard entry into the Australian Open, a rare honor. Even though he exited early, he left his mark, a player who underwent 2 knee surgeries, was written off as washed up in 2018, was still hitting the ball with the pride of a Grand Slam champion. In July 2025, he won a match at the ATP Umag, where he had won a title many years before. The media called it coming full circle. But for Stan, it was just another small step on an unfinished journey. He still participates in ATP 250 and Challenger Tour events, making people wonder, is he writing a poetic final chapter? Off the court, Stan keeps his future plans private. He doesn't talk about becoming a coach or working in television. But those close to him know he isn't the type to fade away quietly or waste his experience. Rumor has it he wants to open a small tennis training center in Stans, or San Barthélemy, where he grew up in the fields. A simple place for underestimated kids to start their dreams. Perhaps that's how Stan will continue his story, not playing to win, but to pass on the spirit of resilience to the next generation. How long will Stan play? Is he delaying the inevitable or living his best days? Where only pure passion remains for Stan. The future isn't a grand finale in front of the cameras. It's every day he's still interested in holding a racket, when his heart still beats strong like the boy from St. Barthélemy. If Stan one day leaves the court in silence, that silence will be the most beautiful way a warrior could choose to go. No fanfare needed, just respect. Because his legacy isn't in the number of matches he won, but in the belief that an ordinary person can be extraordinary if they persevere long enough. In modern tennis, where people are obsessed with incredible records, serves over 200 Kelly and players forged in expensive academies, Stan Wawrinka is an exception. He wasn't born to dominate, nor was he called a prodigy. He doesn't have 20 Grand Slams, doesn't represent major brands, and doesn't appear in the ATP's flashy ad campaigns. Yet somehow, he has endured for 2 decades, leaving his mark on Grand Slams and making people mention him when asked, who is the most mentally tough player in clutch moments? He is a lesson for those who are underestimated, a symbol for people without innate talent, but with an abundance of belief. He proves that victory is not only for the best, but also for those who are the most persistent, quiet, and enduring. We are not responsible if you misunderstand or misapply this content. Please consider, verify, and receive it selectively. Like it? Give us a like, comment, share, or subscribe. That is the fuel that allows us to tell more great stories about other tennis superstars